Hello and welcome to my channel, Bookish Lady Night. Today I am joined by special guest Vermilion H. Baine, the author of The Fae Hotel. If you have not read this story right here, you are really missing out. It is such a good story. It's got all of the magical creatures you could ever want in a book, and they are at a hotel. Yes, at a hotel. And it is very much like the Gilmore Girls meets Fae, and I loved it. I read it so fast, and I'm about to do a reread of it because it was so good. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, of course. So, like I said, this is her book that's out right now. Are you planning on a next one, or is this just a standalone and you're going to start with something different?
So, The Fae Hotel is the first in a series of interconnected standalones. So, the next one is called The Academy of the Dead, and it can be read after the Fae Hotel or before the Fae Hotel. It's different main characters and it has different magical creatures. We're dealing with witches this time, and they're actually dealing with the neighbors, the Abernathys, that show up in the Fae Hotel.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait to read it. When is that expected to be out?
So I'm hoping to do an October release, and then we're going to do a cover reveal in July.
Ooh, I can't wait. Oh, I'm so excited to read that one. That sounds great. I love it. I love that they have the little bit of connection, but they're all different. I'm so excited to read that. I love witches. I love all of that. Oh, it's going to be so good. So, usually what I do is I just ask a few questions just to kind of get to know you, let fans get to know you a little bit better, and just talk about the book. And so, my first question is, does writing energize you or does it make you exhausted?
I think doing the first draft is kind of the most exhausting part for me. And then after that, just like doing all the editing, that's kind of fun to me. Just adding and cutting and perfecting it. That is where I get like super hyper focused, and I think I have the most fun.
Oh, that's
Now, when
awesome.
it's like when I get to the final proofread, now that's just exhausting. But
You're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Just let it be done. Do you get
yeah.
other people to help you to kind of take some of that burden off?
So I have um, beta readers that helped out a little bit, and then I hired editors. But no one cares about it as much as you do.
Yeah.
So I read through so many times doing like my final proofread. I think I said that like 10 times, just because I wanted to make sure it was as clean as it could be.
Oh, that's great. Very cool. So if you could go back in time to your younger writing self, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
There's a lot of little things about the publishing process, especially self-publishing, that you can mess up when it comes to like ISBNs and when you're trying to publish on different platforms. So there's a lot of that like finer stuff that is kind of just you're not going to know it's a problem until it's a problem. I think that would be kind of researching different platform publishing is what I would have wish I had done.
Okay, very cool. So what was your most difficult scene to write in the Fay Hotel?
I think the final scene, there's like a big conflict at the end, and that was probably the most intense because I was kind of realizing that I was getting to the end, and you know what, all these things that you have to wrap up and kind of touch on and trying to do it in clever ways. And it's also was just very overwhelming because I was like, this is ending, because that's the sad thing about a standalone is you're saying goodbye to the characters at the end of the book. You're not going to write about them again. Maybe just like mentions in these other interconnected standalones, but really that's like a goodbye. And I think that was the hardest part for me.
Okay, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, the ending had all the feels. Oh, definitely had all the feels. I was crying at the end.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because I mean, you knew how it was going to end, and so as
Yeah.
I was reading it, I didn't know how it was going to end. So I was like, "Is she going to be really mean, or is she going to be nice?" And so I was crying. So yes, I definitely cried. So, what was your inspiration for writing this book? Having him at a Fay hotel and all of that.
So I was writing a high fantasy series, and I kind of got stuck, and I wanted to write something with like urban fantasy, something fun. And so I was just trying to think of, you know, what are some things that I like? And one thing I really love is Gilmore Girls, particularly like I'm jealous of Lorelai's job where she works and runs that cute little inn. And so I was like, that would be fun to write something with like a magical inn. And then it just kind of made sense to have the Fae involved.
Hmm.
And it kind of I was driving home from like a party or something, and that's where I came up with like the first idea, and I wrote down like some notes in my phone, and it ended up being very different at the end. But yeah, it's mostly just like wanting to write something fun and happy and a little funny as well.
Yes, I love the banter between the characters, all of their little fights that they have and their little disagreements and like how they get to know each other and the fact that she's like a hostage and she's just trying to get away and she's like just let me leave and it's like almost like the hallways are never ending and she can never get out of there because they just keep
Yeah.
routing her back. So I really loved that. It was very clever how you came up with the story and the way you executed it. It was really good. It was really, really good. Um, so let's see here. Have you ever gotten writer's block? And if you have, how do you get out of it? You kind of talked on you were writing another story just now and you flipped. Is that kind of what you do if you
Yes.
do get it?
So I think that was an issue of I'm a big pantser. And so I didn't plot enough, and I got myself to a point where I wanted to change a lot of big things. And so just like thinking about all that, like rewriting how to do, I was like, I'm going to take a break. And so I don't think I get writer's block too often. Maybe for a couple days I will, but once I like get into the habit of writing, then it's pretty consistent. It's when I take like longer breaks that has a chance to just become longer and longer. But as
Mm-hmm.
long as I make myself sit down, I can usually get something. Maybe I'm not in love with it, but I can usually get something down. I think kind of advice I would give to people who have writer's block is I would skip ahead to scenes that I was really excited about. So I guess I did get writer's block because I would skip further ahead to what I had more energy to do and
Mm-hmm.
something that was more exciting or more like romantic. And then I would go back to where I was later and catch up to it. And maybe I would have to change some things, but it wasn't too bad.
So it helped you kind of bridge that gap in between where you were kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So if you were to pick one of the characters, you have lots of different mythical creatures in your story. Which one would you pick? Which would you want to be out of all of the mythical creatures and why?
In the Fae Hotel, I think the Banshees are pretty cool.
I love the
Um,
banshees.
there's definitely some negatives to the Banshees in this world, but I think that would be a character that'd be fun to write to focus on like a banshee character as the main character instead of a side character.
Will she get her own book?
I don't know. Odell's very interesting to me, so I'm always tempted by it. But I'm trying to. I have like 5 standalones with different creatures, different magical creatures that are planned out. So I don't know when that would happen. And plus, one thing that was hard about writing Fey creatures is I decided to um, keep the fact that they can't tell lies in, and that makes everything they say kind of difficult because they can't tell any sort of lie. They have to be clever
Mm-hmm.
about it. And so that was something that I really had to watch out for in my final edits because they can't even like make a joke that's a lie.
Yes. Okay. Well, maybe a novella you could do of her, like something short that's just a little or a bonus chapter where we see her again. Because I loved their relationship, the two of them. Just how they were at the beginning, and she was always having to be there for her, and the dynamic with their parents, and then they're all kind of learning to be their own person.
In the hardcover, and I don't think I put this one out for a newsletter yet. I have to look. I wrote like 4 short stories and I put 2 of them in a newsletter. but one of them is from Odell's point of view, and it's like kind of like an epilogue. So you get to kind
Ooh.
of be in her head for a little bit. I'll probably have that in a newsletter eventually, but right now it's just I think in the hardcover at the end there's those little short stories.
I might have to get the hardcover. I want to read that. I'll have to
Well,
do
if
that.
I'll email you if I put it in a newsletter because I have to format it like
Yeah.
all pretty and all cute, so I just haven't gotten around to that. But I'll
Oh,
let you
that's
know how I
awesome.
do.
That's great. I'd love to read it. So, which of the characters do you feel is most like yourself when you were writing that you identify, I guess, the most with in the story?
I think Eldon and Avalon both have traits that I identify with, but I'm not sure which one I would pick over the other. I have like the eldest daughter trauma, like Avalon does, but I am not as feisty as she is. So that's a hard
So,
question.
more brooding like Eldon a little bit, where you're not so in your face and
I don't know. I'm probably more like Lyra, who's just feeding everyone all the time and, and kind of having like a happier personality. So
yes, Lyra's great. I love Lyra. So, what is your favorite trope to write out of all of them?
I do like the forced proximity trope. I like having two characters that like don't want to be together and they're just stuck that way. I think it's very fun and it leads to like some really fun banter as well, which is like my favorite thing to write.
Yes. You are very, very good at the banter. I highly enjoyed all of the banter. That's like, I think that's my favorite. It doesn't matter. I love enemies to lovers. I love forced proximity. I love all of those tropes, but like, unless there's like the banter and the conversation, you lose me. Like, it
Yeah,
has to be where it's engaging because otherwise it doesn't make it feel real and I don't get sucked into the story. And you did a really good job at the banter. It was really good.
thank
It
you.
was very, very good. Okay, so what is the most difficult part of writing in the perspective of the opposite sex for you?
I think when I write Eldon, I would be, I would be worried about like, is he thinking too emotionally or just thinking about his emotions too much? That would be something that I was worried about, and so I was trying to get like my husband to read it before it was released, just so I could get like another point of view. But I did have a couple male ARC readers, and they really liked Eldon. So I think I did a pretty good job. I think sometimes I was like, oh, maybe I need to tone down the way he thinks to make it more masculine. But I don't know. My husband has like some very romantic wedding vows he wrote himself, so I think it's fine.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. So do you have a writing kryptonite? Things that like derail you in your writing?
I I don't like transitional scenes, like how they get from point A to point B. Especially, I think it's mostly when I'm reading, and I don't want to know like the whole journey. Like they got on a horse, they rode for 5 days. This is what they ate. I don't care about those details, but some people do. So that's something that I really have to like focus on adding. Even though to me, I'm like I skim over this when I read, but some people it's very important to them. So that's something that I have to be aware of. It's on my notes.
So do you do an outline or a I think they call it like a character profile for each and like a scene profile where you kind of map everything out?
I daydream a lot, and I usually have the beginning like perfectly daydreamed, and then I write it, and then once the like story is kind of set up and you've introduced all the characters and the setting, then I will have like a very like loose outline because I think as you're writing and get to know the characters, you're gonna want to change things, and sometimes it's for the better. So I don't try to be too rigid. I want to know
Mm-hmm.
exactly where I'm beginning and exactly where I'm ending, but I want to keep that middle open for changes.
Like have a fluidity so you can do a major plot twist if you feel like it
Yeah.
and change it. Did you do a lot of plot twists that you weren't expecting in this story when you originally had the ideas and once you started writing?
Yes, I did. There was like a character that got written out that didn't really change how it ended, but I don't know, the way when I wrote them out, I was like, wow, they were not needed for this ending scene at all. And in like my next book, The Academy of Dead, I had it didn't once again, I didn't change like the bones of the story, but it changed something pretty big that I was like, wow, this is so much better. I'm glad that I had a lot of time to like think about it and learn about these characters more and what they would do, and that I think that's made this next book a lot better.
So I know with the other book that you had stopped to start writing this book, you said that you kind of backed yourself into a corner. Did you get like that at all with this book, or it pretty much flew and flowed through you pretty easily?
There was like a time when they I don't want to do spoilers. There's a time where they
Yeah, no
go.
spoilers.
I think because it's advertised as a portal fantasy. So like the second time they go to the other realm, there was some things there that I was kind of like getting stuck with. But other than that, no, it was
Okay.
pretty smooth. But that might have been
Yeah,
luck.
your world building is really great, and I loved the portal. I love when there's like traveling to a different realm and seeing it, and because you're so vivid with your first realm, even though it's kind of within our own society, you changed it because it had to have the magical side component to it. And then when you go fully into the new realm and all of those different attributes and descriptions and the way that the characters were different from even the ones that were in our world, you were very rich and descriptive in that. So I really enjoyed reading that. It definitely makes you feel like those videos. I'm sure you've seen them on Instagram where they like hold open the book and then they like fall forward and they've like
Oh
fallen
yeah.
into the book. Yes, that is very much how it is when you read your book. So it was very well written with that, with the descriptions that you used. So I really enjoyed that. I like when there's a lot of using all the sights and the sounds and the smells and you like really fully surround the person in the story so that they're, even though you're giving them some liberty to like, paint the characters in their head the way they see them, but you've really gave them a lot of a background to keep them in the story and away from reality, which is why we all read, because we love to see how life is from a different perspective and get away from our
Exactly.
troubles. So so what is your biggest thing that you've noticed after publishing so this book that you would change doing, I guess, for the next one, since you've kind of done this self-publishing? Is there anything that you're like, I know you were talking about the ISBN numbers, but is there anything else that you were like, I'm definitely going to do this different from what I did last time?
I think this time, I have met a lot of other indie authors, and so for my beta readers, I have authors who have already like done the self-publishing themselves that want to beta read. So I think that will be a little more helpful because I had really good beta readers for the Fey Hotel, but I think this time around I can add some more that might be a little more critical. They might
Mm-hmm.
be able to find different things. So I think this time I wanted to do 2 rounds of beta read so I have time to like make some changes based on the first round of feedback and then go through another round just to get more eyes on it and more opinions.
Okay, yeah, because they're on the same wavelength kind of than the readers. Because if you have a good balance of someone who's been through it and writing
Right.
versus ones that are just reading it, it'll kind of give you a better grasp of the whole process and a really more well-rounded experience. I'm guessing is what will probably
Yeah.
happen this time around.
And most of my beta readers, they were for the first round, they were writers themselves, but it was their first time writing or reading my work. And so
Mm-hmm.
this time I'll have more people that have read a book from me so they know what things that I excel at and what things maybe I need to clarify or work on. So I think that will also help.
Okay. How long did it take you to write the story?
I want to say probably like 8 months, 8 months to finish it and like get it ready to hit publish.
What was a book like that inspired you, or did you always just want to be a writer, or was there something that you read that you're like, wow, I want to try my hand at this. I want to try writing.
I've read Tamora Pierce's series Song of the Lioness, she has a lot of books, and they're high fantasy. Song of the Linus has like a main character with red hair, so I really identified with her. And just growing up with those books, I reread them to death till like they fell apart. And being able to like escape to her world, I really wanted to do that for other people. So she was the biggest like inspiration to be a writer.
That's wonderful. Well, like I said a few minutes ago, you definitely have that whole effect of falling into the book and coming out into a different realm. So it was I loved the book. I loved it. So what is your favorite type of character to write? Do you like to write more of, the wounded hero, or, the female that's finding herself, or someone that's already like really feisty? What's your favorite type of character that you like to write about?
I like, this is going to sound strange. I like kind of characters with sad backstories
Mm-hmm.
that that part is like over, but they have to deal with like the aftermath and finding someone they can kind of relate to and share that experience and help like heal together with. Like I don't want someone to fix them, but I want someone that kind of will understand their situation and they'll like grow together. So I love, especially like with the male characters, I love when they have like some sad a backstory, even when I'm reading other people's works that they have to like come to terms with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I definitely like that because it makes them more fleshed out. I feel like you can buy in that they're real in a sense because there's this
The
thing that you
struggle.
can connect with yourself, because even if you haven't been through something super traumatic and horrible, there's been something between like being bullied or broken up with, or
Mm-hmm.
anything in your life that you can kind of like, oh, I know what they're going through, kind of, or oh, I can relate to that, and then you have that commonality with the characters, so it makes you fall in love with them a little bit more, I think, when you do that, when you connect like that. I think I remember reading, I was on your ARC team when this one came out. That's how I found your book. And I remember reading, or you posted a video that you had gone on a work trip to a hotel, and that was where you got a lot of the inspiration for your hotel and how you wanted it to be laid out and how it looks. Is that right? It was overseas, I
Yes.
think.
Yes, I got sent to Ireland, and there's a couple hotels that my work like has deals with, and so I stayed at the Carton House in Ireland. If you ever looked it up, it doesn't look real. It looks like something that like would be on the set of Downton Abbey. And I remember because I do like electromechanical work, so I
Mm-hmm.
would like go into work and do all this like blue collar stuff, and then I would go back to this beautiful hotel that has all this like old art and has all this history, and the other people there were very like posh and
Mm-hmm.
talking about like, oh, who was going to lose the horses in the divorce. And so I felt out of place, but all the staff was so nice, and you could go to these beautiful walks in the rose garden, and I was just like, this is a dream, like a dream
It sounds like
location to
heaven.
be writing this book. So it just
Did you
worked
write while
out.
you were there?
Yes, I did.
Did you sit in the rose garden, or just kind of find a spot that's sort of like, this is my place?
I would go down for tea time, and I would bring my laptop. I brought it to like every meal I had or any time I went to get like cocktails or tea. So I just carried it around with me from location to location just to see as much of the hotel as I could. It was all
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous.
Oh, it sounds. I'm gonna look it up. I love old world. Downton Abbey is like, I love it on Abbey, but I love old world things. I love anything that has lots of rich history, and so I'm gonna definitely look at that one up. So how long were you there for work?
I was there for 2 weeks.
Okay, that's a good chunk of time to have that your playground to write with and use as inspiration. That sounds like a lot of fun. So with your new story, what's the main character's name? Are you able to give that out yet, or no?
Yeah, I haven't talked about it too much because I'm still like marketing the Fay Hotel, but I can talk about it. So it's also dual point of view of the Academy of Dead. And so we have the female main character. Her name is Maddox. She's one of the Abernathys, which they are a coven of green, very nature witches that live next to the hotel in the Fey Hotel, and she is actually a necromancer. She has like a great 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 grandfather that was a necromancer, and it hasn't shown up in her family line until her. So she in this world, necromancers, because of the kind of magic they perform, is kind of darker. The government, because there's a government entity that monitors all the magical creatures and their interactions with humans, they have them go to a school where they kind of learn to control their powers. And when she goes to that school, she meets the other main character, Atticus, who is from like this family of, they've only had necromancers in their family for like generations. And they start out as friends. It turns into like a academic rival situation, and the beginning of the Academy of the Dead. They haven't seen each other for years. They were on bad terms when they left, and now they are working together on a artifact, and they're kind of just dealing with stuff that happened in the past between them and stuff that's about to happen while they're on this project together.
No, it sounds good. I like the sound of it. That sounds like a really good plot of characters and what's going on. I love the academia, like when they're there and there's like the tension and the rivalry, like you said, that makes a really good trope too. So this one will be really good to read.
Yeah, it's been very
Well,
fun.
that's really awesome. I can't wait to read that. So we're coming out. That one's coming out in October. Okay. Well, y'all have to stay tuned for that one. But definitely pick up the Fey Hotel if you have not read it. Like I said, it's amazing. On your website, are you still doing the ones that have the little goodies like I have up here? Are
Yes,
those
that's
all
on
sold out?
my. No, I still have some available of the hardcovers and paperbacks on my Etsy store.
Okay. And I'll link that below in the video. So if you do want to pick that up and start reading it, you can. And it is on Kindle, I believe.
Yes, Kindle Unlimited.
Kindle Unlimited. Ooh, even better. So you can read it right now while you wait for the book to come. Highly recommend getting the hard copy. There's some really pretty inside decorations in the story and some of the artwork that she includes in here. I love this picture.
Yeah, that's everyone's
So,
favorite.
and I don't think you have it. I think you said you weren't having it in there anymore, but there was this little hanging sign. So I loved getting that in mine. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today and chatting with me and taking some time out of your day to let us get to know you better and learn some more about your amazing book and upcoming projects. I really appreciate you for doing that. And I think if you're up for it, I don't know if you've seen my website the last few days, if you've seen on my following, but I actually, my business, besides reading ARCs and being a bookish person, is I actually make 3D box cards. So they're based off of books and movies and TV shows, and I actually have the Gilmore Girls. So I would love to send that to you as a thank you for a meeting with me.
I did see that. I didn't see the Gilmore Girls one, but I did see that. And I was kind of like poking around. I was like, I wonder what this is.
Oh, yes. So I make box cards. I actually have teamed up with about, so far, I'm still working down my list. You're on my list, but I was going to write you after this, but reaching out to authors to see if they'd let me create cards based on their books. So it's something good for fans. They can put it on their shelf, and it has all the characters, and I'll usually put little nuggets in there of like something that only someone who's read it would recognize the reference. So like for this one, the section of the bellhop counter with all of the boxes in the back with the keys, like I kept remembering that whole scene. So things like that, where that could be on the back of the card where that ties into the book. So that's kind of what I do. That's my passion. And whereas yours is, writing and doing that, I love to make things that like the characters come alive, and then the people who are reading the book have a little reminder sitting on their bookshelf with their book.
That's awesome. I love watching time lapses of people doing that. It's something I could never do. It's so cool though.
Yes, I love it. I love it because it makes people smile, and they're all different. So it's like your book is totally different than someone else's book, and they could be the same genre, but they're totally different. So it makes it a lot of fun to try to get into your head and see how you see it, and then make something that represents that. So I really enjoy doing it. But I would love to send you that. So if you send me your address, I will send you that as a thank you. And I'll chat with you more maybe if you're willing to let me make one of these based off this great novel. I'd love to do that. So please, everybody like and subscribe, and make sure to hit the bell so that you get notified for other videos that I have with wonderful and amazing authors. And I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.